Today we are going to explore all these types of Greek helmets, what they looked like and how they evolved from simple shapes to more complex and then back to simple again. Actually, it was supposed to be a video about the Roman helmets, but it turns out that it is impossible to fully understand the development of the legionary helmet without learning about Greek, Italic and Celtic helmets. So, in the next video, we will look at the Italic and Celtic helmets, and then we will finally move on to Roman. Hello and salute! I'm Maria, and this is Pictus channel, probably the first YouTube channel where drawing meets history. Before we get into specific types of helmets, let's first take a look at the map. Terms like Illyrian, Boeotian or Corinthian are often used to describe types of Greek helmets. These names do not necessarily indicate the region of the helmet, and as always, there is much debate among scholars on the question of typology. But since it is the most common typology, we will stick to it. And to better remember these names, let's sign some historical areas and cities on the map. Here is Illyria, this is Epirus, and here is Macedonia, and this is Crete. This area is Attica, Athens is over there. This is Boeotia. This is the island of Euboea and the city of Chalcis, and this peninsula is Chalcidian. Also, we will need some cities: Corinth, Olympia, and Argos. It's generally believed that all Greek helmets evolved from two styles: the one with a cone shape, often named as Kegelhelm, and the archaic Corinthian. Both were used around the 8th century BC. Let's first track how the conical type evolved, and then we'll go back to the archaic Corinthian type. Kegelhelm. This term is borrowed from a German language, with a literal reference to its cone-shaped form. This type is dated to about 8th century BC. Crest holder was attached to the top. There was no nose guard and the face cutout had a rectangular shape. This is a distinctive feature of the Kegelhelm and other helmets derived from it. The helmet also had large plates to protect against the side hits. Although the back plate is slightly lower than the front plate, there was no neck protection itself. The development of the Kegelhelm will go in this direction. The second change worth noting is the abandoning of the conical shape. All subsequent helmets of this and related types will have rounded shape. This helmet was made of bronze and consisted of 5 parts: the dome, the front plate, the back plate, and 2 side plates, which were overlapped and connected with rivets. By the way, a similar piece was found in Argos. Further development of the Kegelhelm splits into 2 branches. The first is so-called Insular type. It is known mainly by images. There is only one copy, and even that is not fully survived. I could not find any images, but the surviving piece looked like this. It consists not of 5 but of 2 parts. Each piece is one side of the helmet. The crest wasn't attached separately, but was made together with each of the halves. Then everything was riveted together. The nose guard is still missing. This helmet was popular in Crete around 650s BC. The second line of development of the Kegelhelm is the Illyrian type. Illyria is here. However, this does not mean that the helmets originate from there. It is called Illyrian because a large number of such helmets were found there. They began to produce this type in the area of Olympia in western Peloponnese. Such helmet models were popular in the territories of Illyria and Macedonia. This helmet can be described as an early Illyrian helmet. It also appears as Type 1. Like an insular helmet, it consists of 2 halves. A distinctive feature, which will be preserved further on the Illyrian helmets, is the ridge at the top, in the place where the 2 halves of the helmet were joined and the crest was attached. The connecting point of the 2 halves was the weakest part of the helmet. To some degree, the ridge and the crest made the construction more durable, but still such model was less protective than a one-piece helmet. There is still no nose guard, and I would say that all Illyrian types will not have one. Please note the lack of protection for the neck at the back, the shape of the cheek guards, and the way they meet the back of the helmet. Now this is a full copy of the forms of the Kegelhelm helmet. But this is the part that will be changed later on. The holes on the edge are for the attachment of the inner padding of the helmet. The next step in the development of the Illyrian helmet is the appearance of neck protection. This is an Illyrian Type II helmet, 600 BC. This type is believed to come from the Corinth. Notice the arrow-shaped cutout here. You will find something similar in Corinthian helmets. The ridges along the helmet are enlarged, but this is no longer due to the technological process of joining the two halves together. Now the helmet was made in one piece. By the way, if someone is interested, this is not watercolor paper. It's just a regular paper, 300 grams per meter. The pigment is immediately absorbed and it's quite difficult to wash it. But it seems that I'm getting used to it, little by little. The further development of the Illyrian helmet is marked by a change in the cutout. It becomes even more pointed and becomes longer, which would seem to allow a better hearing. The length of the cheek guards also increase. This type is referred as a Type III, around 550 BC. The Adriatic coast is thought to be the center of production. And the next version has a full ear hole. This is Type IV. There is a small round knob, which looks like a screw not completely screwed in, and similar on the back. The crest was attached to these points. Sometimes, instead of a screw, you can see small holes. I can assume that the mount knob has simply fallen off, but this is purely a guess. I also came across some photos of the Illyrian helmet with the hinge plates, but I have no idea what type it belongs to. Of course, none of the crests have survived to our days, but I will try to paint it to see what it might have looked like on the Illyrian helmet. And about the crests. Earlier, especially in the context of the Roman helmets, I have frequently seen the mention that the crest on the helmet is the mark of the rank. And also, it's easier for the soldiers to recognize a commander. But while I was researching this topic about the helmets, I came across another theory. The crest was supposed to mimic the animal's fur that stands up at the moment of danger. This visually increases the size of animal, just like the crest visually made the warriors taller. Celtic battle hairstyles are hairs, slick back and up, by the way. On this form, the development of the Illyrian helmet stops. The Illyrian helmet was used by the ancient Greeks, Etruscans, and even the Scythians. It was very popular with the Illyrians, who seem to have produced it in large numbers. It's believed that its popularity was due to the fact that the Illyrian tribes used more dispersed formations, light infantry and cavalry, for which a good field of vision was very important. And the Illyrian helmet definitely gave better vision compared to the next one we will look at. There is also evidence of use of this helmet in Italy. In the most part of Greece, this helmet went out of use in early 5th century, and in Illyria its use stopped by the 4th century before Christ. You definitely notice that English is not my first language, and that's quite hard for me to make in a voiceover, and especially being in front of the camera. And in general, it was very difficult for me to overcome all my fears and finally start this historical channel in English. So I would highly appreciate if you drop some encouraging lines for me in the comment section, or just to give a like to this video. This will really support me a lot. Primitive Corinthian type. This is the second branch of the development of Greek helmets. Sometimes the Corinthian helmet may also be referred to as Dorian helmet. Corinthian helmets appeared around 7th century BC. The distinctive feature of the Corinthian type is close design compared to the Illyrian helmet design. On the front side, the helmet had curved holes for the eyes and an outline of the nosepiece. The cheek guards almost close, leaving for breathing a vertical gap. The oldest examples of the Corinthian helmet could also consist of two halves. By the way, this kind of helmet also existed, something between the Illyrian and Corinthian type, with two ribs on the top like the Illyrian, and the Corinthian type is always indicated by curved holes for the eyes. However, all helmets were soon made in one piece. Such helmet was much stronger than those made from the two halves. Please notice that it didn't protect the neck, and also it was quite heavy. Of all types of Greek helmets, the Corinthian helmet would be the heaviest helmet. As you can see, at the first the helmet looked like a pot with eye sockets, but as time goes on, more and more ergonomics will be added to its design. An indentation appears in the place where the helmet can be divided into side and rear parts. The bottom edge is angled, I mean the angle of this line. The nose guard is also slightly bent and becomes more massive. Of course, the vision in this helmet was worse than in the Illyrian helmet, and the introduction of such design is often associated with a change in tactics. The combat was now conducted in a tight phalanx formation. The warrior didn't need to look around, but at the same time he needs protection from the frontal blows. However, in addition to limiting the field of vision, such helmet also hindered hearing. This fact had led some authors to suggest that the popularity of the Corinthian helmet slowed down the evolution of battle tactics, since the communication on the battlefield was almost certainly impossible. The next stage is the transformation of the notch into an arrow-shaped cutout. It is certainly smaller than the notch on the Illyrian helmets of the same period, but nevertheless there are some parallels. Such a bronze helmet was cast in a head-shaped form and then finished to the right size and shape by forging. Such authors as Snodgrass or Hansen state that the Corinthian helmet had to be made specifically for each soldier. If the helmet did not fit tightly on the soldier's head, a blow in the battle could turn the helmet and completely blind the soldier. The need for an exact fit means that the helmet was difficult to inherit or to obtain as a trophy. It is so that the Illyrian helmet continued to be used as a cheaper and more versatile helmet. Whether the helmet could be reforged and refitted to the new owner remains unclear for me. A pointed, arrow-shaped cutout on the side will be a distinctive feature of the Corinthian helmet. As the face plates become longer, these cutouts became more and more defined. This is a very distinctive piece. Its shape is certainly familiar to you from movies and illustrations. By this time, its flaws were gradually being corrected. The cheek guards and the back of the helmet became longer, so they not only protect the neck from the back and sides, but also lean on the shoulders of the owner to transfer the weight of the helmet from the head to the shoulders. The weight of such helmet was from 1 to 2 kilograms. Above the forehead, you can notice a rim that goes around the entire helmet, as if the helmet is wearing an extra helmet. It's said that this was done to increase the thickness of the undercap to better absorb the force of blows, and it provides protection from sliding blows. I don't know how. If you look at this Illyrian helmet, you can guess the next step in the development of the Corinthian helmet, the addition of the ear cutout. This happens in the 5th century before the Christ. Otherwise, the shape remains the same. The cheek guards in the Corinthian helmet were flexible, so that it could be pushed up on the top of the head. The cheek guards fit tightly on the head, holding the helmet in the position. This made it easy to slide the helmet onto the top of the head while it still sits securely. This is how the hoplites wore it outside the battlefield. This, and the previous form enhanced by the crest, became one of the most easily recognizable symbols of the Greece in the classical period. And one more thing. all helmets had soft padding inside, undercaps. It was glued or otherwise attached to the inside surface of the helmet, or helmet could be worn over the felt cap. In Greece, the Corinthian helmet disappeared at the beginning of the 5th century, but it survived a little longer in Italy. It was especially popular in Apulia, a region in southern Italy where many Greek colonists lived. Throughout the 6th and 5th centuries, the Italians continued to develop their own interpretation of the Corinthian helmet, gradually abandoning the original idea behind it. The helmet no longer protected the face, but was worn on the top of the head as a cap, just as it's often depicted in the sculptures. This is a kind of non-combat position of the helmet, where it is pushed up on the top of the head, exposing the face. This helmet is known as Italo-Corinthian, Apollo-Corinthian, or Pseudo-Corinthian helmet. The eye holes and the vertical slits were retained, but became disproportionately small in size. Later, vertical slit receives a crosspiece, and finally ends with the closed construction with only eye sockets. Retaining eye holes as a decorative element, this type finally turns into a cap. This type existed for a quite long time. It was even worn by Roman officers of the late Republic. It finally disappeared only in the 1st century AD. A type of helmet called Chalcidian helmet spread from the 6th to the 3rd century. There are two explanations for the name. Let's look at the map. In the northeast of Greece, there is a peninsula of Chalcidice. And here is the island of Euboea and the city of Chalcis. So, one version says that the Chalcidian is because it is often found on a pottery from the peninsula of Chalcidice. The second version says that it was made by the people from Chalcis, who settled in the Greek colonies in the Italy and Sicily, and it was quite popular in the southern parts of Italy. By the way, Greek word chalkas means copper. If you like this type of video of combining drawing and talking about the history, you could support me simply by pressing the like button. I would appreciate if you share your thoughts in the comments. Does this kind of channel have a future or not? And should I continue? I hope that yes, because I'm pretty happy that I found a way to combine my two hobbies, drawing and history, in one channel. And you will make me feel very happy if you decide to subscribe. This video takes more than 40 hours to be made, and it's quite disappointing to have so few subscribers. Also, I started a Patreon page. I will add the time-lapses and full-length video of all the drawings. And if you decide to support me, I will send you one of these drawings by regular mail worldwide. This is definitely not a piece of art, but some of them are quite nice. The Chalcidian helmet is a further development of the Corinthian helmet with an open ear. The nose guard is reduced in size, and sometimes even turns into a symbolic one. The cheek guards change shape, become rounded, and open the face to a great extent. And note that the cheek guards are now made as a separate element, not a continuation of the dome of the helmet as in the Corinthian type. The cheek guards could be made one piece with the helmet, or they could be attached with the hinges. The shape of the cheek guards with a wavy curve in the front is very common. This helmet gives less protection than the Corinthian helmet, but provides better vision. Its weight was also reduced to about 1 kilogram. It is believed that it was more comfortable to use despite the reduction of the protective features. The improvement in ergonomics is obvious when you look at where it all started. Different authors divide the Chalcidian helmets into subtypes depending on how the cheek guards are attached and whether there is a nose guard. And here we won't go too deep. However, it is important to say that quite often the variation of such helmet, which doesn't have a nose guard and the cheek guards are fixed on hinges, is called Attic. Although this example was listed as a Chalcidian one. Whether the Attic helmet is considered a subtype of the Chalcidian helmet or a separate type is probably not so important. But keep in mind, if you come across a mention of an Attic helmet, it's most likely this helmet. The Attic helmet was lighter than most Greek helmets. Its left face completely open. There was no nose guard at all, unlike the Chalcidian helmet. The ear was open, and the cheek guards were attached on hinges and sometimes even removable. As with the Illyrian type, the name Attic is not an indication of origin, and it can rather be considered as a conventional name with which most scholars agreed, just to make it convenient to label this type of helmet. Its image on vases appears in early 6th century. If you look at helmet images on Greek pottery, you will notice that the helmet had a crest. However, all the Attic helmets that have been found were not found in Greece, but in Italy. And in the next video about the Italian helmets, we're going to talk about Attic helmets once again, because this type was very popular with the Samnites, and they were decorated with not a crest, but with feathers or small wings. And here is one more thing I'm going to ask you to remember. The wavy shape of the front edge of the cheek guards. You will see this later on helmets from a different period and different region. By the way, about the images on the vases. Notice that the cheek plates are raised. Yes, there was such possibility since the plates were on hinges, and we can assume that the raised cheek guards are some kind of non-combat position. But how they were kept in such raised position is not clear to me at all. Please write your assumptions in the comments. The forehead area of the Attic helmet had reinforcement, and over time it will turn into a purely decorative element. And one last thing about the Attic helmet. All those officers' Roman helmets in movies are just Attic helmets, and as far as I understand, they were much more popular in art than in real life, if we are talking about ancient Rome. Only one Roman Attic helmet has been founded. This is it. So there is a lot of doubt as to whether anyone in times of Roman Empire used Attic helmets. The Chalcidian, Corinthian and Attic helmets can be mistaken, but you will definitely recognize the Boeotian helmet at once, because its shape is very unusual, a kind of metal panama, or petasos, ancient Greek peasant hat, with wide brims for protection from the sun. This helmet is considered to be a cavalry helmet. It appeared in Boeotia around 5th century BC, and then it was adopted in Thessaly. The names and the typology of ancient helmets are most of modern origin, and are not related to the region of their use in antiquity. But the term Boeotian helmet, however, is an exception, as it was used by Xenophontes. The helmet has a hemispherical shape, enhanced by a downward-sloping folded brim. At the back, the slope of the brim is greater to improve the neck protection. In the front, it forms a kind of visor, and on sides, the folds can form these pointed elements. Over time, the shape of Boeotian helmet changed slightly. The size of the frills was reduced, and the shape of the dome became closer to conical. This helmet doesn't protect the face from stabbing blows, but it's very good against attacks from above. And it protects not only the head, but also the neck. In addition, the open design provided good vision, did not hinder hearing and breathing, and in general was convenient for use in hot climate. This is one of the lightest, cheapest, and simplest Greek helmets. Here is what Xenophontes wrote. As to the helmet, the best kind, in our opinion, is one of the Boeotian pattern, on the principle again that it covers all the parts exposed above the breastplate without hindering vision. Alexander the Great's cavalry, by the way, wore the Boeotian helmets. Also, similar helmet was used by the Roman cavalry during the Republic, but it was more conical shape and sometimes could have a horsehair on the top. Some authors, such as Snodgrass, claims that after Alexander the Great, the Boeotian helmets were also used by the infantry, along with the Attic and Thracian. If the Boeotian helmet resembles the shape of Pictus, the head of Greek peasant, the Phrygian helmet reproduces the shape of Phrygian cap. Phrygian cap in ancient times was used, for example, by Persians and Scythians. It was also popular among the tribes of Thrace, Dacia, and Dalmatia, and it got its name from the historical region of Phrygia in the West Turkey. The head had the form of a cap and was made of soft materials, felt or fur. The apex of the cap was bent forward. This distinctive design you will see on the Phrygian helmet and the Thracian helmet, or should I say, Thracian helmet. As far as I understand, there is no clear and unambiguously shared opinion on the classification of these two types. Often, both terms are mixed into one and used as equivalents. You also could meet the definition that the Phrygian helmet has simply a band on top of the cap, while the Thracian also has a crest or another decoration at the top. Sometimes it's said that Thracian helmet has a more pronounced wither and the Phrygian helmet has a less pronounced one. And sometimes you can even hear the phrase like Thracian helmet with the Phrygian style top part. Whatever this helmet was called, it has no nose guard. Cheek guards could be presented but were not mandatory. One popular form of cheek guards look like this: long plates that follow the jawline, with a cutout in the eye area. Sometimes they could have very complicated shapes. In some examples, cheek guards would completely cover the face from side blows, and in addition to that, they could join in the front part. Also, special cutouts were made so that the cheek guards would form a kind of beard and mustache. And for sure, ancient craftsmen like to add decoration. Such helmets are more often mentioned as Thracian, but it seems that there is no clear indication that the Thracian helmets is with the cheek guards and the Phrygian without. Like the vast majority of Greek helmets, Phrygian and Thracian helmets were made of bronze. Sometimes the top of the helmet was adorned with the horsehair crest, but in general crests became much less common in the 4th century before the Christ. After the military reforms of Philip II of Macedon in the 4th century BC, almost every soldier of the Macedonian army wore a Thracian helmet. Even the Alexander the Great is said to have worn an elaborately decorated iron Thracian helmet. The great popularity of Thracian and Attic helmets is explained by the fact that they provide good vision, did not hinder hearing, and provide decent protection from arrows. You can often see this version of helmet on a Macedonian hoplite or any other late Hellenistic infantryman. Mid-size crest, visor, small neck guard, and cheek guards. This helmet is often referred to as a Thracian helmet. The Thracian helmet remained popular with the Greeks until the conquest of these territories by Rome. As I said at the beginning, Greek helmets in 8th century began with relatively simple shapes, both visually and in terms of manufacturing. Over the centuries, they became more complex, offering the higher level of protection. But during the Hellenistic period, simple helmets again gained their popularity, and especially the Pilos. The Pilos is perhaps the simplest of all Greek helmets, and if you think that there's nothing to tell about it, because it's just a metal cone, no, there are some very interesting facts about it. At the same time as the Phrygian type, another cap-like helmet was popular in Greece. This is Pilos. It is even more simple in manufacturing in comparison with the Phrygian. Initially, the Pilos, like the previous helmets we talked about, had a soft civilian analog and was a conical head made of felt. The Pilos was used at the same time as the other types of helmets, but it was simpler and therefore cheaper to produce. It's often believed that this helmet was used by light infantrymen and archers. The helmet was made of bronze and, because of its simple shape, weighed up to 1 kilo. And I want to remind you that, like any other helmet, the Pilos had a padded undercap. Sometimes the Pilos could have a mount for the crest, but this is quite a rare case. There are several theories about the popularity of the helmet. At first glance, the simplicity may seem like a rather odd result of the evolution of the Greek helmet. First, as you remember, the helmet becomes more complex, and then a very simple form becomes popular again. One assumption is that the helmet was mass-produced and was a kind of standard equipment. However, there is no evidence for this in any ancient text, and there is no archaeological confirmation. Tim Everson claims that the development of battlefield tactics required infantry to have a full vision and mobility. Another theory suggests that soldiers, recruited from the poorer social class at that time, could not afford full equipment, and therefore they neglected the elaborate helmet in favor of more durable shield and quality weapons. The author of Soldiers and Ghosts, John Landon, suggests that the helmet was adopted because of a kind of cultural competition triggered by the Spartans. The first widespread adoption of the Pilos occurred in Sparta in late 5th century BC. By using the helmet with the open face, they seemed to declare that they had nothing to hide. There was no fear or any other feelings on their faces. Phalanxes of the other states often start running before the clash, excited by the danger of the battle, and that broke the lines. The Spartans, on the contrary, moved forward accompanied by the music of the pipes, which was supposed to calm the anger of the warriors, and marched in steady step, without breaks in the order. Prior to the adoption of the Pilos, Sparta used mainly the Corinthian helmet, which hid the expression of the face. By the adoption of the Pilos, the Spartans demonstrated the bravery and calmness. This kind of bragging placed social pressure on other Greek communities, essentially forcing them to adopt the Pilos as well. Could such theory be true or not is for you to decide. For me, as a modern person, it's hard to imagine giving up greater security solely for the purpose of the demonstrating bravery. Perhaps the first reason was really the simplicity and the possibility of mass production. You could add to this convenience, lightweight, vision, nothing hindered hearing, plus an open helmet in hot climate did not interfere with breathing. And on top of that, the popularity of the Pilos was secured by the opportunity to demonstrate one's bravery and self-control, showing that you belong to Spartan warriors. We wear open helmets not because we are poor, but because we are Spartans. But this last suggestion is purely my speculation. Next time, we will talk about Italic and Celtic helmets, and of course, draw all of them. Thank you for the watching and see you in the next video.